The janitor nobody noticed. The night lights of the alien corporate tower shined like stars across the city. Inside the building, workers in expensive uniforms rushed from meeting to meeting, their voices sharp and proud. None of them looked twice at the man pushing a mop bucket down the shining hallways. His name was Daniel. He was a single dad, quiet and ordinary in the eyes of everyone. To the galaxy, he was nothing more than a human janitor. The kind who cleaned floors when the powerful finished walking on them. His hands were rough, his uniform warm, but his eyes held a sharpness no one cared to notice. Daniel had learned to blend into the background. Aliens passed him in the corridors, tall and glowing with strange skin, their words flowing in tongues humans were not supposed to understand. Daniel listened quietly as he mopped the marble floors, never reacting, never showing the secret that lived inside him. Back home, life was different. He had a daughter, Emily, who was the center of his world. Every morning before work, he braided her hair and packed her a small lunch. Smiling as she laughed at his clumsy cooking, Emily was too young to know why. Her father worked so late, or why he seemed so tired when he came home. Daniel never told her the truth of his past, because some things were safer left hidden in the tower. Executives whispered about galaxy-wide trade, secret alliances, and laws written to keep humans at the bottom. Daniel knew those words, every single one, but he stayed silent. He had been taught long ago by someone who mattered more than life itself. His late wife, an alien diplomat with silver eyes and a gentle voice, had once whispered lessons to him at night, teaching him the speech of her people. When she died, he promised never to forget. Now, every evening as he cleaned the boardroom floors, he remembered her voice. The executives never thought the janitor could understand them. They laughed about humans, called them weak, useless, incapable of leading. Daniel's mop slid back and forth, but inside, his blood burned. He wanted to shout, but he swallowed the fire. Because he had a daughter to protect, one night, the tension in the tower rose higher. A group of alien executives stormed into the boardroom. Their voices raised. Daniel stayed in the corner, mop in hand, trying to be invisible. The aliens argued about a deal gone wrong, accusing each other of betrayal. One of them, tall and cruel, turned and sneered. Humans. He spat in his native tongue. They are nothing more than animals. They should clean floors and keep silent. The others laughed. Daniel's knuckles whitened on the mop handle. His heart pounded, his jaw clenched, but still he said nothing. The words echoed in his head, mixing with memories of his wife's voice. Something inside him broke. For the first time in years, he lifted his head and looked straight at the alien executive. The room was still loud. No one noticed the janitor staring back. His lips parted, and he whispered in perfect alien speech. "Careful with your words, for even animals can bite." But no one heard. The words slipped into the air like ghosts, lost under the sound of shouting. Daniel lowered his gaze again and kept mopping, his secret safe for one more moment. Yet the fire was awake inside him now. Every insult, every mocking laugh, every moment of being invisible, it all piled together. He was more than a janitor, more than the broken man they saw. He was a father, a husband who had once loved across worlds, and a human who carried knowledge no one expected. The night dragged on, and Daniel finished his shift in silence. But in his heart, he knew the day was coming when his words would not stay hidden. The galaxy thought he was nobody, just a man with a mop. They were wrong. Very soon, the janitor nobody noticed would shock them all. Asterisk words that shouldn't be known. The morning light spilled through the high glass walls of the tower. Executives filled the boardroom again, their voices sharp, their robes glittering with wealth and power. And once more, Daniel was there, mop in hand, moving across the floor as if invisible. But something inside him was different now. The words he had whispered last night still burned on his tongue. His wife's lessons echoed louder than ever. telling him that silence could no longer protect him forever. He looked at the faces of the alien executives, proud and cruel, and he knew, sooner or later, he would speak again. The meeting began. With heated arguments, the aliens spoke in their native tongue, voices rising, words heavy with anger. They believed no human could understand them. They never noticed the janitor moving slowly along the edges of the room, listening carefully. 1. Executive slammed his fist on the table. "Our supply routes are failing," he shouted in alien speech. "Then someone among us has betrayed the council." Another snarled back, their language sharp and fast, full of words most humans would never even hear. Daniel's heart raced. He understood every syllable, every hidden insult, every secret. Plan whispered beneath the shouting, and then it happened. One of the younger aliens stood up, pointing at the screen of glowing symbols. "The calculations are wrong," he declared. "If we continue like this, our enemies will crush us within weeks." The other executives laughed, mocking him. The young alien flushed red, his hands trembling, unable to defend himself. Daniel's mop froze in mid-air. He knew the numbers were wrong too. He had heard his wife explain them long ago. The laughter grew louder, echoing against the tall glass walls, and before Daniel could stop himself, the words burst from his mouth. "You forgot to carry the third symbol," he said in perfect alien speech, clear and flawless. The boardroom fell silent. The laughter cut off like a blade. Every eye turned slowly toward him. The mop dripped water on the polished floor, but Daniel didn't move. He stood tall, his face calm, his voice steady. "The young one is right," he continued. "Your calculations are wrong, and if you follow them, your ships will burn." The silence was so deep it hurt. The young alien stared at him with wide eyes, grateful but shocked. The older executives looked at him as if he had grown two heads, and the cruelest one, the same alien who had insulted humans last night, rose from his seat, fury burning in his glowing eyes. "Who taught you our sacred tongue?" he demanded, his voice like thunder. "No human has the right to speak it, not even a single word." Daniel tightened his grip on the mop handle. He could feel the weight of every stare. In that moment, he was no longer invisible. Every alien in the room now saw him, not as a janitor, but as a man who carried something forbidden. "My wife taught me," Daniel answered quietly, still in their language. "She wanted me to understand her people. She wanted me to honor her memory." Words struck the room like lightning. Gasps filled the air. For an alien to teach a human, their tongue was not just unusual, it was dangerous, even illegal. And now here was a janitor, standing in the center of their council, speaking it better than some of them. The cruel executive slammed his hand against the table. "This is blasphemy," he roared. "A human dirt worker speaking our words, correcting our calculations. He must be punished." But another executive raised a hand, his eyes narrowed. "No," he said. "Listen to him. His speech is flawless. Even his grammar is older than ours. He knows things that should not be known." The room erupted into chaos, voices clashing. Some shouted for his punishment. Others demanded to know how he had learned. The young alien, who had been mocked, stood silently, staring at Daniel with something like respect. But Daniel himself remained calm, though his heart was hammering. He knew he had just crossed a line that could never be undone. The cruel executive stepped forward, towering over him. "You will come with us," he hissed. "We will see if your tongue still speaks when you are in chains." Daniel looked at the alien, then slowly set the mop aside. His eyes met theirs, sharp and fearless. "If you put me in chains," he said in perfect alien words, "the truth will still be heard, because your walls are already cracking." Gasps filled the chamber again. The executives exchanged nervous glances, for the first time. Fear not pride moved through their ranks, and then the door opened. Armed security guards stepped inside, their armor gleaming, their weapons humming. They moved toward Daniel, surrounding him. The cruel executive's lips curled into a smile. "Take the janitor," he ordered. "He knows too much." Daniel did not resist, but in his eyes burned a fire they had never seen before. A fire that whispered one promise. This was only the beginning, asterisk. The secret past the guards marched forward, their heavy boots echoing on the shining floor. Daniel stood still, hands loose at his side, his mop abandoned on the ground. The executives watched with cold eyes, waiting for him to break, waiting for him to beg. But Daniel did not bow his head. He lifted his chin and looked directly at them, his gaze sharp and unshaken. It was the first time many of them realized this was not an ordinary janitor. This was a man carrying something more dangerous than a weapon. The guards seized his arms and pulled him from the chamber. They dragged him through the long halls, past walls covered with glowing alien script. And though he walked in silence, his mind was not empty. Memories flooded back, each one cutting deep, each one burning bright. He remembered the first time his wife had spoken her native tongue to him. Her voice was soft, like music, her silver, eyes watching his every reaction. "You will never be one of us," she had whispered. "But if you love me, you must learn, because our daughter will belong to both worlds." Daniel had agreed, not knowing the weight of what he accepted. Night after night, she had taught him symbols, grammar, hidden meanings. He learned not only the words, but the songs, the history, the secret laws. Knowledge forbidden to humans, knowledge now alive inside him. The guards pushed him into a dim holding room. Cold walls closed in around him. But Daniel's heart did not falter. He sat quietly, listening, thinking, remembering, because he knew. The truth, the aliens feared knowledge, and he carried more of it than they ever imagined. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, the executives argued he must be silenced. The cruel one hissed, slamming his fist against the table, but another shook his head. "No, if he speaks this fluently, someone important must have trained him. If we kill him, others may rise." Whispers spread like fire rumors that the janitor was more than he seemed. Some called him dangerous, others called him useful, and one word slipped between their lips again and again: prophet. Back in the holding cell, Daniel heard the door creak open. A figure stepped inside, cloaked, in shadows, moving with quiet steps. It was not a guard, not one of the cruel executives. It was the young alien from the meeting, the one Daniel had defended. He stood there, nervous but determined. "You spoke words you should not know," the young alien whispered. "How did you learn them?" Daniel studied him carefully, his voice calm. "My wife taught me," he answered. "She gave me her tongue, her culture, her secrets, because she believed love was stronger than fear." The young alien's eyes widened. "Your wife," he said slowly. "Was she?" "One of us," Daniel nodded, his chest heavy. "She died years ago, but before she left this world, she gave me a gift. She wanted our daughter to grow with both voices, human and alien." The young alien stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If that is true, then you carry not just Forbidden's words, you carry our history. You carry the heart of our people." He hesitated, then whispered, "The others will try to destroy you, but there are some among us who will protect you. Because knowledge like yours, it changes everything." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I never wanted power," he said. "I wanted only to clean floors, raise my child, and honor my wife's memory, but they would not leave me in peace. Now they will see the truth." The young alien looked at him with something like respect. "You may not have a choice anymore," he said, "because what you know can shake the galaxy." Before Daniel could answer, the door opened again, and the cruel executive strode inside. His eyes were full of venom. "You think you are clever," he spat. "You think you can speak our tongue and walk free." He motioned to the guards. "Bring his daughter." Let us see how brave he remains when she is in chains. Daniel's blood ran cold. For a heartbeat, fear gripped him. Then it turned to fire. His eyes blazed as he rose to his feet, his voice steady. "If you touch my daughter," he said. In flawless alien words, his tone like steel, "you will see what it means when a human stops being silent." The cruel executive laughed, but his voice trembled at the edges, because in that moment, standing in the dim light of the cell, Daniel was not just a janitor. He was a father, a protector, and a man holding the secret past of two worlds. And the galaxy was about to learn that his silence had been their greatest mistake. Asterisk the single dad's hidden strength. The door to the holding cell opened with a hiss. Two guards entered, dragging a small figure between them. Daniel's breath froze in his chest. It was Emily, his daughter. Her small hands struggled against the guard's grip. Her wide eyes filled with fear. She looked at her father, confused. Too young to understand why men in armor had taken her, Daniel's heart thundered, rage and terror battling inside him. The cruel executive stepped forward, smiling like a predator. "You speak words forbidden to your kind," he said coldly. "Now let us see how strong those words make you when your blood is in our hands." He pushed Emily forward, forcing her to stumble before Daniel. The guards tightened their hold, waiting for an order. Daniel's fists clenched, his knuckles white. Every instinct screamed to tear them apart, to break the guards with his bare hands, but he forced himself to stay. Still, violence would kill them both, but knowledge could cut sharper than any blade. He bent down, his eyes locking with Emily's. Her tears trembled on her cheeks. "Don't be afraid," he whispered, his voice calm, steady. "Daddy is here. Daddy will not let them hurt you." Then he stood tall, turning to face the aliens, and when he spoke again, it was not in human language. It was in the alien tongue, deep and flawless, the way his wife had once spoken to him in the dark of night. "You dishonor your own laws," Daniel said, his voice ringing in the chamber. "You swear by the covenant of the first tongue that children are sacred, even in war, even in judgment. Yet you break it before my eyes." The guards froze. The executives shifted uneasily. Because every word he spoke was true, and every alien in the room knew it, the cruel executive snarled, trying to cover his fear. "You know nothing of our covenant," he spat. "Those words are not yours to speak." But Daniel stepped forward, his eyes burning. "They are mine," he thundered, "because my wife gave them to me, because she trusted me more than she trusted you." His voice shook the room. The young alien who had once defended Daniel in silence now stepped from the shadows, his expression filled with awe. "He speaks truth," the young one said. "The covenant forbids harm to children, and if we break it, we lose the right to call ourselves rulers." Murmurs rippled through the crowd of executives. Some nodded reluctantly, others whispered in fear. The cruel executive's face twisted with fury, but he could not deny the ancient law. The covenant was older than any empire, and Daniel had just spoken it better than they could. Emily looked up at her father with wide eyes. For the first time, she heard him speak the alien words her mother once used to sing. She did not understand them all, but she understood his strength. Her fear melted, replaced by trust. The cruel executive snapped his fingers. The guards released Emily. Stepping back nervously, Daniel pulled her close, holding her small frame against his chest. She clung to him, whispering softly, "Daddy," but Daniel did not relax. He knew this was not victory, only survival for the moment. The cruel executive glared at him, his voice sharp with venom. "You think your tongue makes you strong, human?" he hissed, "but words cannot protect you forever." Daniel met his gaze, and then, with deliberate calm, he switched languages, not just to one alien tongue, but to another, and then another. He spoke 3 dialects back to back, each perfect, each ancient, each forbidden for humans to know. The entire room went silent. Shock rippled through the executives. Some stepped back as if struck. Others dropped to their knees in disbelief, because the janitor had not just spoken their words, he had spoken their secrets, the language of their ancestors, words not even. Their own children were taught, "You hide behind wealth and power," Daniel said, his voice echoing in 3 tongues. "But I carry something you cannot buy, something you cannot steal: knowledge, memory, the truth of your people." Emily looked up at him with awe, her fear replaced with pride, and in that moment the alien saw him not as a janitor, but as a man who carried fire. The cruel executive trembled with rage. "This human will destroy us," he whispered. "He will break the walls of our order." But another voice rose from the crowd, firm and unyielding. "Or he will save us." The chamber erupted in arguments, voices clashing. Some shouted to kill him at once, others argued to keep him alive, and through it all, Daniel held his daughter close. He said nothing more, but his silence was louder than their screams, because now they all knew. The single Dad with the mop was more dangerous than an army, and his hidden strength was only beginning to show. Asterisk. The Chamber of Judgment, the great chamber of the alien council, was carved from black stone, its walls etched with glowing runes that seemed alive. High above, banners of every alien house swayed gently, as if watching, judging, remembering. It was a place where no human had ever stood, until now. Daniel was led into the chamber by guards in heavy armor. Emily clutched his hand tightly, her small fingers trembling. He squeezed back, calm and steady, letting her know he would not break. A crowd of executives filled the circle, their cold eyes locked on the janitor who had spoken their oldest laws. The head counselor rose, a tall figure with shimmering scales and eyes like burning coals. "Human," he said in a voice that rumbled across the chamber, "you stand accused of speaking words forbidden to your kind, of mocking our laws, of spreading corruption." The chamber echoed with murmurs, some full of anger, others full of fear. Daniel did not bow. He lifted his chin, holding Emily close, and his voice cut through the whispers. "I did not mock your laws," he said in flawless alien speech. "I reminded you of them, because you had forgotten your own covenant." Gasps filled the chamber. The head counselor's expression flickered. Just for a moment, the cruel executive who had brought him here stepped forward, pointing with venom in his voice. "He is a danger," the executive shouted. "His tongue is a weapon. He must be silenced before he poisons the people." But another voice rose, sharp and strong. The young alien who had once defended Daniel stood tall among them. "No," he declared, "the human speaks truer than any of us. You mock him for knowing our words, but he knows them because we abandoned them, because we let greed replace honor." The chamber erupted into chaos, voices clashing. Some shouted for Daniel's execution, others demanded he be honored. The head counselor pounded his staff against the floor, the sound booming like thunder. "Silence," he roared, and the chamber fell still. He turned his gaze to Daniel, his eyes burning with suspicion. "Tell us, human," he said, "who taught you our sacred tongue? Who gave you the right to carry our history?" Daniel's jaw tightened. He could have lied. He could have hidden the truth, but his wife's memory burned too bright. "My wife," he said clearly, "an alien diplomat who chose to love a human. She gave me her tongue, not as a weapon, but as a bond, as a promise to raise our daughter with both worlds." Inside her, the chamber froze. The words struck like a storm. Whispers rippled through the crowd. An alien woman had broken their deepest taboo, binding her language and her life to a human. The cruel executive sneered, his voice dripping with poison. "Then he is proof of her treachery, proof that she betrayed her people. His very existence is an insult." Daniel's eyes flared, his voice cold as steel. "No," he said. "She was the only one among you who still remembered what honor meant. You call her a traitor, but it is you who betrayed her people when you twisted your laws into chains." The chamber shook with uproar. The council divided. Some bared their teeth in fury. Others looked away in shame. Emily clung to her father's leg, her small voice whispering, "Daddy, why are they angry?" Daniel bent down, his voice soft but steady. "They are angry because truth hurts, but don't be afraid. Truth also protects us." The head counselor slammed his staff again, sparks bursting across the stone. "Enough," he growled. "This chamber will decide his fate." He turned to the circle, his voice heavy. "Shall the human be executed for breaking our laws, or shall he live, carrying knowledge that does not belong to him?" The vote began. One by one, alien leaders raised their hands, some for death, some for life. The cruel executive's hand shot up for death, his eyes never leaving Daniel. The young alien raised his hand for life, his voice calm and unafraid. The chamber split nearly down the middle, rage and fear colliding like fire and ice. And then Daniel stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You argue as if I am not here," he said, his words echoing in the chamber. "You forget that humans do not break so easily. You think chains and silence will end me. But I carry your laws, your secrets, your forgotten truths. If you kill me, my daughter will carry them. If you kill her, others will rise. Because knowledge cannot be buried." The silence that followed was like a blade. The counselors stared, some in horror, some in awe. The head counselor's hand trembled on his staff. For the first time, the alien leaders felt something they had never felt before, not anger, not pride, but fear. Emily looked up at her father, her eyes wide with trust, and Daniel stood tall in the center of the chamber, no longer invisible, no longer just a janitor. He was a single father who had turned words into weapons, and the galaxy had no idea what storm he was about to unleash. Asterisk the threat against his daughter. The vote ended in chaos. The chamber split, voices rising, some calling for mercy, others calling for blood. The head counselor tried to restore order, but the cruel executive only smiled, his eyes burning with venom. He leaned close to the guards and whispered something Daniel could not hear. A moment later, Daniel noticed the shift, subtle but dangerous. The guards' grips tightened on their weapons, their eyes sharp and cold. And then, with a flick of the cruel executive's hand, everything changed. "Take the girl," he ordered, his voice like poison. Gasps filled the chamber. Even the counselors recoiled. Emily screamed as two guards lunged forward, ripping her from Daniel's side. Her small hands reached out, her voice breaking, "Daddy!" Daniel's blood turned to fire. He surged forward, but spears of energy blocked his path. His chest heaved, his fists clenched, but he forced himself not to charge blindly. Violence would kill her, he knew, but he would not let them win. Cruel executive laughed, lifting Emily by the arm, holding her before the crowd like a trophy. "This human thinks words can protect him," he sneered. "Let us see if his words can save his child." He turned to the council, his voice louder, sharper. "Do you not see? This human has infected us. If we allow his blood to remain, our laws are broken forever. Let us end it here. Let his daughter pay the price of his arrogance." The chamber erupted, half the council shouting in horror, the other half in agreement. Emily's terrified cries echoed against the black stone walls. Daniel's heart pounded, but his mind sharpened like a blade. His wife's voice whispered in memory, "Knowledge is sharper than steel." Slowly, Daniel raised his hand, his voice cutting through the chaos. "If you harm her," he said in flawless alien speech, his tone cold as death, "your own laws will destroy you. Your own people will turn against you. Because I know the covenant you fear most." The cruel executive froze, his grip tightening on Emily. The council fell silent, every alien leaning forward. Daniel's voice grew louder, stronger, carrying across the chamber the covenant of bloodlines. He said, each word sharp as fire, written before your empires, before your cities. It says no child of mixed heritage shall ever be harmed, for they are the bridge between worlds. If you kill her, you do not only break your law, you shatter the very foundation of your empire. Shock rippled through the chamber. Some counselors shouted in agreement. Others paled in fear, because Daniel's words were not just fluent, they were ancient. Older than many of them had ever heard. The cruel executive's face twisted. You lie, he snarled. No human could know of the covenant of bloodlines. But Daniel stepped forward, his eyes burning, his voice thunderous. My wife told me, because she trusted me, she gave me the words you buried, the truths you feared. She made me guardian of them. And if you touch my daughter, the galaxy will know your shame. The cruel executive trembled, his arrogance cracking. The guards hesitated, their grip on Emily loosening. And then Daniel moved, not with fists, not with weapons, but with strategy. He spoke again, switching to a different alien tongue, older, sharper. The dialect of warriors, release her, he commanded, not as a plea, but as an order. The words carried weight, words only leaders were meant to speak. The guards faltered, eyes wide with fear, and slowly they obeyed. Emily stumbled back into her father's arms, clutching him tightly, sobbing into his chest. Daniel wrapped his arms around her, his heart pounding, his rage steady. The chamber was silent, all eyes fixed on him. For the first time, the cruel executive looked uncertain. You are not just a janitor, he hissed. You are a threat to everything we are. Daniel's voice was calm, deadly calm. No, he said. I am a father, and you are a coward who hides behind power. Your fear proves my words are stronger than your throne. The chamber shook with shouts, some calling Daniel a prophet, others demanding his death. But through it all, one truth remained. The single dad who once mopped floors now stood as a force the galaxy could not silence. Emily's small hand tightened in his, and Daniel knew this was no longer about survival. It was about showing them all that a human with nothing left to lose could not be broken. Asterisk. The human who could not be ignored. The council chamber was in chaos. Alien voices clashed like thunder, some calling for Daniel's death, others shouting for his protection. The head counselor slammed his staff again and again, but order would not return, because the galaxy had just witnessed the unthinkable. A human janitor had forced their laws against them. Daniel stood in the center, Emily clinging to his side. He was tired, his body heavy, but his eyes burned with fire. For the first time, every alien in the chamber looked at him not as dirt, not as invisible, but as something they could not ignore. The cruel executive's face twisted with hate. This man will destroy us, he spat. If he leaves this chamber alive, our people will question us. Our empire will weaken. Everything we built will fall. He pointed a trembling hand at Daniel, his voice rising. End him now, before his words spread beyond these walls. But another counselor rose, his voice strong. No, he said. If we kill him, the people will know. They will see we fear him, and fear is poison. His words already live. Even if he dies, they cannot be silenced. The chamber split again, fear against fear, power against truth. And Daniel knew this was the moment. If he stayed silent, they would crush him. But if he spoke now, if he chose his words carefully, he could change everything. He stepped forward, his voice carrying across the chamber. You call me a threat, he said in flawless alien speech. But I was never here to take your power. I was here to survive, to raise my daughter, to honor my wife's memory. It is you who turned me into something more. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Daniel's voice grew stronger, his words sharp as a blade. You built empires on fear. You silenced voices. You buried your own laws, but I am proof they live still. A janitor, a father, a human you called weak. I carry what you tried to destroy. He shifted languages, his voice now flowing in another alien tongue, older, harsher. "And I will not stop speaking," he thundered, "because truth does not bow to thrones. Truth does not die in shadows. Truth stands where you cannot reach inside the people. Inside their children, inside me." The chamber fell silent. Even the cruel executive's mouth froze open, his fury choking on the weight of Daniel's words. Emily looked up at her father, her eyes wide with pride, her voice whispering, "Daddy." "They're listening." Daniel placed a hand gently on her shoulder, then turned back to the council. "You will not chain me," he said, calm but unyielding, "because if you do, my daughter will speak after me, and if you chain her, others will rise. You cannot silence what has already begun." For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the head counselor lowered his staff, his voice heavy. "The human is right," he said. "We cannot bury what has been spoken here. Whether we kill him or not, the words will live." The cruel executive roared in fury, his face dark with rage. "You cannot let him walk free," he screamed. "He will undo everything. But no one rose to join him. One by one, the other counselors turned their backs, their silence louder than his cries. Daniel held Emily close and stepped forward. "I don't need your titles," he said. "I don't need your power. I don't need your seat at your table. I need one thing only: respect for my daughter and respect for my people." The words struck deeper than any demand, because in that moment, Daniel was not asking, he was commanding, and the galaxy's most powerful leaders bowed their heads. Unable to deny him, Emily clung tighter to his hand, her small voice soft. "Are we going home, Daddy?" Daniel looked down at her, his heart aching with love. "Yes," he whispered, "we're going home." He turned without waiting for permission. He walked across the chamber floor, mop long forgotten, daughter in his arms. The guards did not move. The council did not speak. Even the cruel executive stood frozen, powerless to stop him. And as the great doors of the chamber closed behind him, one truth remained: the galaxy had mocked him, ignored him, and tried to break him. But the janitor, a single dad they once called nothing, had spoken words they could never forget. And from that day forward, the human could not be ignored. Asterisk.